Hello and welcome to Tom Meets Interesting People. This is the podcast where I meet everyone from voice actors to nuclear engineers to talk about their work, their projects, and their processes. You're going to have to forgive my voice today. Now, when I tell you who this next guest is and what he's currently doing, I know many of you will think that this sounds boring and you will want to switch to another episode, but I ask that you stay for this one. Regardless of where you might be in society or where you are in the world, politics plays a massive role in our lives. Every policy that is made has some kind of effect, be that tax, education, health, transport, or any other sector you can imagine. My guest today is Erik Johnson. He's currently running for City Council in St. Albans, Vermont, a beautiful part of the world. But also, he's someone like me who does everything and doesn't stop. He's also a web designer, a photographer, a drone pilot, and before that, he was an EMT. Erik, I want to welcome you to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I gave you a brief introduction there very, very quickly, but I just want to know, your context. Let's kick us off.
Yeah.
Why so much?
I've never been one to be known to not want to take on more. It doesn't mean I'm over busy. It means I'm active. And that's always been a big thing for me. I like to joke with people, and it's not a joke, it's a serious thing, but there's a test you take to determine if you're an introvert and extrovert. And mine came out 98% extrovert, which I'm still trying to figure out where that 2% is on the introvert side. So, but yeah, I like to be active in the community. I like to volunteer for stuff. I like to cook and eat. And I like to have friends and go out with friends and stuff, because it's just like being around people engages me and kind of boosts me up. So.
Fair enough. I'm kind of curious as well about, you've gone from EMT to web designer to photographer. That's a career jump and a half. So is there a story behind that?
Well, a little bit. So going on the helping people side, when I was in college, we had a student that died on campus, and it kind of brought awareness to the college that we needed an EMT group. And a friend of mine got me into it, along with my other best friend. And it just became this opportunity to learn more in the medical side. Now, I've always been the type that if I've cut myself, I cover it up, that kind of thing. But when I was in the field and the adrenaline was going, I was able to engage and save people, and that felt really good. And helping people was the big thing about that. But EMT was kind of the volunteer thing I did for years. I started in college around 2004, and I ended around 2012, I think. So, over 10 years of being an EMT, and it just got to a point where I needed a break. There was a lot of, good times, a lot of sad times, and I just needed that kind of breather. But to answer your question, I got into photography way back in high school. So when I got to college, my best friend, John Adams, he was a photographer as well. And he brought me in to continue growing my experience, and I became a professional photographer. So that's kind of ridden all the way along as I went through my primary career that kind of, paid the benefits and got the insurance, but also kind of I felt good about doing. So I always try to find that career that tied in well. So now I'm a communications specialist with Milton Town School District, which ties well into my photography side. And the website design piece, that's been a passion since I was a kid. So building websites since, well, I say as a kid, websites were just a thing when I was first a kid. So as the web grew, I learned about it, which kind of helped me embrace it more. So I got into doing the website development for our EMT group in college, and then nonprofit groups, and then eventually doing businesses. So that's been kind of my drive with that, but tied well into the creative side of photography and the communications side. So yeah, I think all of it kind of culminated together, and I've never really done one after the other. It's just been kind of growing on this communications kind of point of view.
So it sounds like kind of like helping people. That's like a running theme in your life, obviously with the EMT.
I guess so.
Does that also, I mean, yeah, it does. But does that also kind of influence why you're in politics now?
So yeah, the last 7 years, I've been on what's called the St. Albans for the Future. It's an organization that merged with the city years back before I actually joined, and is now called the Downtown Board. And that group is all about bringing people to our community, helping small businesses out, helping the community discover things to do in St. Albans. So that kind of grew me into the municipal side of things. And then I got into the design advisory board a few years ago, and that was a great opportunity for me to kind of shape the future while keeping a historic feel of St. Albans. And I loved being part of that board. I should say I love being part of that board. And if I do win city council, I'll have to step down from that board, which will honestly be the most sad part for me, along with the downtown board, stepping back from those. Still having an active role, volunteering, but just not being able to play as critical a role at that level, but hoping that I can play more of a critical role above that level. Working with policy ordinances, helping the city resolve issues, addressing the public safety piece with break-ins and car thefts and porch robberies, as well as, kind of getting that communication component going again between the community, the city, and the people, understanding what's happening, what projects are going on. So I think I can do more, but that's kind of the backing of that. Like, I got into politics not for the political side and not to somehow gain title or anything. It's more of an opportunity for me to give back even more now that I've kind of reached that point of like leadership on these organizations. And now the next step is city council.
So my next question for you for that is, how do you balance all of it? Like, you're spending... You've got like 100 jobs. Like, I've known you for a little while now, and you are always working till like 1 a.m. So how are you balancing that?
I think it's 1 a.m. your time, my friend. It's normally 9 or 10 o'clock here, but I find it's good having a job like I have as a communications specialist, because what I can do is I get in there nice and early and I get a lot done, and that kind of leaves me time at the end of the day to focus on my community piece. Working with the groups, working with events that we're planning. I think my balance comes from, if I have too much downtime, I don't know what to do with myself. And so I have to fill those downtimes with things to do. And the things to do are more for me, as I pointed out, are engaging, doing something that gets out with people. It's not all about giving back. Sometimes it's about just having fun. Sometimes it's about sitting in the backyard near the campfire. I do those things, I promise. I play this game with this great guy I know, and that helps kind of give me a break. Exactly, right? That gives me a break from reality, I want to call it. But reality, I love it. I love knowing so many people in my community, and I think just filling my calendar with many things that are community-oriented is just so important to me.
Mm-hmm. So I get the sense that you love St. Albans. Bit of a leading question. I think you can see where I'm going with this one. I'm not exactly Wolf Blitzer right now. But tell me, because I'm in the UK, I've never been to the States. Sell St. Albans to me.
Yeah, let's say because you're going to get over here and visit.
Yeah.
So St. Albans, it's not as old as some of the cities over there. I know that. But it's got a strong and rich history. We were the northernmost point of battle in the Civil War. So that's kind of a point of reference of time and stuff, is how long St. Albans has been here. And that's a piece of pride for a lot of people around here. They have an annual recognition of that battle. And they also, they do a lot around Memorial Day. They have huge parades. So it's like they're really kind of a community that cares about, their history. Further, we've set up design advisory board because we have a rich historic history as far as the buildings go. So the buildings around here are zoned, but that's more to keep a certain feel and look of this like historic preservation of the city, while looking how we can advance some of the businesses we can bring in and job opportunities and growing, housing and stuff. So it's like St. Albans is this rich little community that's diverse in population, which is beautiful. We have people of all levels. And, these people, you see them at firework events down Taylor Park, and Taylor Park has a rich history itself. It's got a beautiful old bandstand, a gorgeous fountain, which was just redone by the Rotary a couple of years back. And there's a ton of events that happen down there. In a couple months, they're going to have the Easter egg hunt. It's an annual thing. They fill the park with eggs, put the kids behind tape and wait, announce, ready, set, go, and everyone just kind of pounces on the park, which is great. And I think it's just the community itself is really what makes St. Albans special to people. I think I lived in Massachusetts in Worcester County, and Mass has its beautiful historic areas, but it just, the richness of St. Albans and the way they've preserved what St. Albans is and looks like, there's nothing like it in the United States. And I've been to Germany, I've been to Luxembourg. There's some beautiful historic cities, and I would honestly compare it to some of them over some of the ones even in the States.
I feel like I need to also clarify, just for our UK listeners, that we're talking about the Albans in America.
Oh yeah,
not the one just outside London.
I almost started with that.
It's a beautiful place. So both beautiful, beautiful places to go. So let's move on to politics now. I know, not everyone's favorite subject. That's why I started with all the fun stuff first. Why should I even bother about politics? Why should I bother about local politics?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people nowadays, especially here, you see the rhetoric online that they believe, what's the point of voting? What's the point of having a voice? The same old people are going to get voted in. And, having run through this election so far, or this campaign, I'm realizing that mentality is kind of toxic, because there's a lot of people that are retired, and there's a lot of people that are at stay at home that have the opportunity to get out to vote. There's not a lot of people that, spend their day at work, want to come home and then stand in line at town hall. So it's great that St. Albans has done things like registering to vote online, requesting mail-in ballots if they need to, so they can vote if they can't make it to City Hall. But I think the big thing is having a voice it does still matter. Yes, you have the party lines, and I'm not gonna get into those because luckily City Council is not partisan. It's very non-party based, which I love. I mean, it's a dynamic group instead. But I think there's this inclination to align with what your father, your mother, your neighbor, your best friend says. And really then it kind of washes out your voice. And I think having your own voice and standing out on your own, it still matters. I've gone out to vote every year, both in town meeting day and national elections. And we have another national election coming this fall, which means that on town meeting day, they're going to be voting on primaries also, which was a little bit of a shocker to me, because I'm like, okay, we have a small amount that turn out to town meeting day every year. But now we're going to have a larger number turn out because it's the primaries. The national race is always more important to people. But I really think what people don't realize is your education tax, your municipal tax, all that stuff is local. That's your decisions made by your city council, by your Senate, your House, it's in the state. And I think unless you speak up and put the right people in play and the right people, in the positions you need them in, you're just allowing the same old rhetoric to happen. You say the same old guard to remain in place. I mean, so I think turn off the news and pick up some of the literature, do your research into these politicians, these candidates, learn about them, learn about their stances, figure out what they've done in the past. Are they somebody that came out of the blue? Are they somebody that's been in the community? Are they somebody that stands for what you believe in? Ask them the questions, because honestly, it's your opinion that's going to change the future for your community. I mean, I know Britain's a lot like that. It's your voice, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Obviously, I know you and me, we both have the sort of same stance on please vote. But you mentioned research there and researching your candidate. For somebody who's never even looked at their candidates before, and has made that choice, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to do it now. How do they even start that research?
It's a good question. Some candidates like myself set up websites that actually lay out how to reach us, have information about us. They talk about our candidacy and our values, our positions. Some people are a little more silent. So asking your neighbors, hey, do you know somebody? What are they about? Listening to some of the city council meetings that have happened, see what they have voted for, what they voted against, see if what they're saying in the news, and I notice to put the news down, but see if what they're saying in the news matches up to what they've done in the past. And that's a big piece, because I think the news plays a very critical card in our current culture, and what they see and hear on the news isn't always the full picture. And finding, like you're just saying, where do you do the research? That's a difficult choice, that difficult topic. I think you do the research by reaching out to these candidates and talking to them. I am personally going out today and tomorrow. I'm knocking on doors in my ward to introduce myself and ask them what their critical questions are for the city, what's important to them. Because one of my key components of myself is to have their voices heard. I want to be a conduit to the city, which we should be as elected officials, to be that conduit that people can use to find the right people, to reach the right people, or reach the right voice, make sure that their concerns are being brought up and not just written down and kind of lost in a pile. So Yeah, I think, and it goes back to that research piece. I really think it's going to be, for local candidates especially, finding them, calling them, asking them the critical questions. A lot of them have their websites on their signs. They have their information out there, their phone numbers out there. Give them a call. I mean, we're a local community still. And yeah, a lot of people know each other. And just because you see a name and you know a name doesn't mean that name's the right person for you to vote for, because they may not align with what you really want. So just try to get out there. Now, like I said, I have a website, so I make sure my candidates are able to, or my constituent potentials are able to see what I'm all about. But not everybody does.
All right. So let's say I've now done the research. I picked who I want to vote for. And just to avoid a certain accusation of biasness, I've decided to vote for Bobby McBockface. How do I do that? Like, obviously, it's going to be specific to St. Albans, but how would I vote?
Yeah. So as I touched on a little bit there, Vermont has done a great job about setting up an online portal. It's called My Voting Page, mvp.vermont.gov. It's where you can actually go, put your last name in, you put your date of birth in, and it'll pull up if you're registered. If you're not registered, you can register to vote. It also has the ability to order a mail-in ballot at that point, which became big with COVID. I know, and that's kind of a controversial subject, mail-in ballots, because everybody got them at one point. They're not doing that anymore. You're not going to get a ballot unless you request it. So if you're thinking you're going to just get it in the mail, make sure you visit that website and register to get it if you need it. The other option is on March 5th between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. going to the city hall. Each town or city has a town office, a city hall where you can go in person and vote at the ballot, which has been a tradition since back in early England history, I guess. I mean, I don't know about England, actually. You guys didn't have much voting early on, right?
It's a storied, long history with rotten boroughs and sort of like different people getting the vote. I don't know enough. I can't comment.
Well, here, I mean, as you know, and I don't want me to touch on the sensitive topic of talking on a British podcast here, but ever since the Revolutionary War, voting's been a big thing here. Because, they don't want patriarchs, they don't want monarchs, they want elected officials that represent them. And not saying that monarchs and patriarchs don't represent them, but they want to make sure the person's in for a specific amount of time. And if they're not filling that role, they have an opportunity to find somebody that will. And I think like here especially is just, like I said, getting online, registering to vote. You can actually, let me share a quick story. The high school I work at in Milton, they had a local group come in, register students who are going to be 17 on March 5th, but they're going to be 18 in November for the national election. They're allowed to vote for the primaries, but not for town meeting day. But that was an opportunity to get the students, young minds, like registered. Because if you look at the numbers, a lot of people that vote nowadays are over the age of 60. The majority over the age of 60. The younger generations aren't getting out to vote. Now, whether or not that's because they work, they're busy, they have kids. It's important to realize that the experience and the wisdom of the older generation, they're going to hopefully elect the right people. But it's really the issues of modern day that these younger people are going to be impacted by, the children are going to be impacted by. And that's where we really need these young minds and young parents to get out there and vote and do the research first. I hate the thought of like people just voting by name or recognition. I know there's a big thing about putting signs out. I've got signs out and it's like, I don't know who's running for our ward, but I recognize that name. It seems familiar. I'm going to check it off. I ask you not to do that. You don't have to check off a name if you don't recognize it when you're voting. If you don't know who's running for a judge position and you don't know any of the names on the list, don't check it off.
Yeah, fair enough. Now I'm kind of curious about something, because in the UK, pretty much everything in politics is party based. But you mentioned about 10 minutes ago, you said that local politics, city council level over in the States is non-partisan, non-party based. So for someone who's not familiar, how does that actually work?
It's a good question. So I don't know about every state. I know in Vermont, local select board and city council don't declare a party because there's the issues affect both parties at the city level. That's my opinion. Issues aren't polarized one way or the other, most of them at the city level. I mean, when you talk about safety and policing, there's going to be two sets of opinions, more conservative look and a more, progressive look at it. But at the city level, you're looking at more of how does the local issue affect us and impact us, and how can we address that locally? And I think that it's good that we don't see parties at the city council level, because we want to make sure we're not aligning with what our party wants if we don't completely agree with what our party wants. I mean, there's issues that come across, and I feel like this happens at the national level, where you have senators and House reps that they go along with something that their party wants just so their other part they're passionate about gets pushed through. And I just, that bothers me.
I've always kind of wondered as well, how does one even run a campaign like yours? Like, where do you even begin with that?
Yeah, so I love that. Like, it kind of is a developing story. So about 3 years ago, I started getting a lot more involved with local, politics. So there's other people running that I actually stepped up and helped them out with their campaign. I went to a couple of campaign parties where I got to meet people and those are just like booster events where you raise money, where raise awareness, you get to talk about your issues with people that are like-minded. And it was great because there's a couple people there that said, "Hey, Erik, you were closely involved in the project to redo the roads in your city, especially my road." It's like I was out there helping neighbors resolve issues that came up during the construction, and reaching out to like the right people to get that, those issues addressed. And they said, you're involved. You should really run for office. And I said, well, where would I start? And they said, well, you should do city council. So for the last 3 years, I've really been monitoring and following a lot of what happens around here and learning a lot more about what our city's needs are. And I started this back in July, asking the people, talking to my neighbors, talking to the people I'm on boards with, and asking them if these issues make sense and what would they want to see done if someone was elected in that would listen. And I'm not saying that people don't listen. It's just we want people that are always available. Like, call us, email us, let us be responsive to you. So that really kind of drove me to want to get into it. So process-wise, back in November, I started laying out my whole entire campaign plan. I started figuring out my positions, my values, and I knew my values, but kind of getting them on paper. I get a checklist together, and that's something I find value in. I have a project management experience. So having a checklist and a project plan, it's so important. And I know this is not the most exciting topic, but I think having that due diligence to make sure you're checking off all the boxes to complete something it's important. And something I've learned from my partner big time. And she's pushed like, hey, always have a checklist, always be ready. So then the first step was getting your petition signatures. So the petition is 30 signatures saying, yeah, put Erik on the ballot. So I went around in January, knocked on doors. I met people I've never met before. I've had friends recommend homes that were friends of theirs, neighbors of theirs. I've met people I do know, and they signed my petition, and I got 38 signatures, which was amazing. And luckily, when you turn it in, they do a review to make sure everybody is a voter in your ward, because those only people can vote for me. And all but one were in my ward. The other person's registered, but not in this ward. They just got to be moved. So that was a great feeling to know that I was going to be in the ballot. I was very happy when I got that email from the city clerk saying, yep, you're on, you're good. So then February rolls around, and I've started ramping up more of my campaign, getting my signs out, doing awareness campaigns on social media, putting letters into the letter to the editor for the local St. Albans Messenger, announcing my candidacy. I plan on putting more letters in. I have friends that, they believe in me, and they're doing the same. They're talking to their neighbors, they're talking to their friends. So I'm hoping over the next 3 weeks, I can meet more people. Now we have a vacation coming up, so families are going to be heading out the end of this month, right before election. So my goal is for the first 2 weeks coming up, like next week and the weekend after, is hitting up those homes that are family based, make sure they know who I am before they head off on vacation, and encouraging them to get out and vote. And then the election day will come around. I'll be one of the people standing outside with my sign, greeting people as they come in. If people don't know who I am, I hope they come over and say hello. If they know who I am, I hope they come over and say hello. And then you just the nervous nail biting at the end of the day there. 7 o'clock rolls around and you have to wait. And we're fortunate nowadays because when we were kids, my mom had friends that ran for office, and it would be a couple days possibly at times to get the count done. And nowadays, with being digital, it's a little bit faster. They slide it through, it scans it, and they have a better idea what the numbers are. So we'll find out.
So I'm guessing also as well that you kind of reading between the lines, you wanted to help people, but you didn't intend to get into politics. Am I reading that correctly?
The intention was there. I think eventually I wanted to get into, helping by being elected and making the right changes and resecuring the changes that existed, the laws that are already there, making sure they're the right laws or the right ordinances. So I think I was eventually going to get into politics. It's just where I got in was a question. I had a friend last night who actually reached out. His sister lives in my ward, and he vouched for me. He's known me for years. He's like, hey, this is, listen to this guy. He might be the right candidate, which was great for me. I really appreciated him. I told him that. And he said his sister actually wants to put a sign up for me. So I said, that's someone I haven't met yet. But he came back, and the piece I'm going to tell you about this is, he's like, I'm surprised you're going for council. I said, how so? He's like, well, I figured you go for mayor, house, or senate. And I said, well, I appreciate that. I got to start somewhere. And
so what you're telling me then is that in 10 years' time, we're going to be seeing President Johnson. Maybe?
No. I don't have the lawyer. Let's see. Most of the people have either had a legal background, or they've specifically had a constitutional law, or they've gone into political law. I'm not planning on going that level, but I'm hoping that I can bring my communications background, my creative background, my emergency management background to benefit the local community. And maybe, who knows, it could be state eventually, I'm hoping. I don't think I'll be making it Congress anytime soon. If I do, I'll eat my own words. But if I do that, I'll be hopefully talking to the Parliament buddy over there, right?
maybe. What? So we're gonna have Prime Minister Sanderson and President Johnson.
Oh, jeez.
No,
that would be quite the allyship.
Now, you are the first person I spoke to that's ever ran a political campaign. So I'm kind of curious to know, what have you learned from doing that process, and what might you want to adjust if you go for a second go? Is that the correct term? Second go, second run?
Second run's fine. That works. I learned a big lesson last week. So being my first time, it's the first time I put signs out, and I got my signs out nice and early. I wanted to get them out early, just to start building awareness of who I am. And 2 weeks ago, my opponent announced he was running, and his sign was going up last weekend. And so I get this trepidous anxiety seeing all the signs going up, thinking, oh no, I need more signs. And a close friend of mine and my partner reminded me that it's not about the signs. It's not about the website. It's not about the social media. It's about meeting people and listening to their needs. So one thing I've learned from this whole thing is to shift and focus on the knocking on doors, the walking my puppies through the community and saying hi to people. I met someone really friendly on Rugg Street, walking the girls around the neighborhood, that her son was a little fearful of the pups, and they were great with them. Went right up and said hello, and he was petting them. And it was that nice interaction. And I think that is what some people lack, is getting out there and talking to people. I know I've talked to a couple community members across the city who asked me, who is my council member? And I'm saddened by that. It's like, you really should get out to know your constituents. I know you're not going to meet everybody. I've got 1,100 voters in this ward, probably around 2,000 people with kids. So you're not going to meet everyone. You hope to. But I think if you can get out there and meet the majority of them, they're going to tell their neighbors who you are. So when people ask, who is our council member, who's our Ward 5 person, they'll say, oh, it's Erik Johnson. He's over on Ferris Street. And I think that's something I learned.
So, Erik, thank you so much for this. I now going to close this off with a little bit of a tradition that I have.
Okay.
These come from the Prost questionnaire, which were later adapted by Bernard Pivot and then by James Lipton, if you remember, inside the Actor Studio. And now I present my adaptation to you. You're the second person I spoke to who has nodded to Inside the Actor Studio. I can't believe it. Like, how more people not watch that? I love that show. Anyway.
I think Katie's more into that, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm now Katie's best friend. So, the first question. What is your favorite word?
Favorite word?
Mhm.
Oh, well, it's kind of funny because it's always been, because when I was a kid, grammatically, I had problems with, I had ear infections, so I couldn't say things well. So when I finally was able to grammatically improve, I was able to say supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, and that
Wonderful
kind of
word.
became my favorite word.
And what is your least favorite word?
Hate.
Mhm.
I mean, I've used it. I think it's a strong word. I think it's actually a little bit stronger than most curses. I think hate has so many different connotations, but all of them are just negative. You know, like if you say I hate this food, it's still so negative. It's like, hey, what don't you like about it? Don't just hate it. What is your issue? Find out like what is the problem with that thing, and you can't just use hate as a generic like I hate cars. Why do you hate cars? It's like be a little more specific. So hate, I'm gonna say, is my negative one.
What engages you?
People, 100% people. Like
Mhm.
my partner loves to talk, get out and be with people, but she needs recharge time. I'm the type that needs to get out and be around people to recharge. So the more I'm engaged with neighbors, friends, parties, I don't go clubbing. Really, I'm not a big fan. I'm normally deaf afterwards. But if I'm out in the club, it's like just being able to talk to people. So I get as far away from the music as I can and talk with people. It's like that engages me. So yeah, they're doing events like planning the Festival of Trees for 7 months, and then being able to go to some of the events and take pictures is like that just engages me.
And next question, what disengages you?
That's honestly, it's I think very little disengages me. I do get disappointed when something doesn't work out the way I wanted, and sometimes I'll get to the point where I just kind of feel like, what was the point? But then I'll have good people around me to help say, hey, you'll get it next time, you'll figure it out next time, and that kind of pulls me back up. But honestly, the only thing I think disengages me is like when things just don't work out. It's like if a friend is hurt by something and I don't know what happened, or the campaign, I don't win it. It's like, that's fine. I'll feel a little disengaged for a bit, but I'm gonna get back into the community. I'm gonna get out and do what I love. So I think that's what disengages me.
What sound or noise do you love?
Oh, geez. Honestly, it's a lack of it. So in the wintertime, when the snow is everywhere and the birds are sleeping or they're hibernating and the animals are away. I mean, I live in the city, so it's not always quiet, but when you can hear, it's not really silence, but it's just this hush of the wind and the lack of everything you're used to hearing. And I love that sound. It's so calming. I know I say that as I say I feel engaged when I'm around people, but there are times when I just want to watch the grass grow and listen to just nothing. So that sound makes me feel really good.
And what sound or noise, I know you don't like this word, but what sound or noise do you hate?
Well, we all hate this chalkboard sound, right? The I honestly, I think it's when people get really high pitched when they're yelling about something, and that pitch just kind of eats at you, if you know what I mean. It just kind of starts like getting deep into your head, and you're like, listen, take a breath, calm down, tell me what the issue is. You know, that high pitched squeal of angry people.
What is your favorite curse word?
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why. I feel like it's the least curse of curse words. There's a place in Milton called the Dam Store, which is a perfect play off of it because it's next to a dam. But you know, like people always play off the, hey, I'm gonna go to the damn store. All right, we know where you're going. So, yeah, my favorite curse word.
I think I noticed this, like, yeah, it's definitely that bridge, because I've had guests in America, guests in the UK, guests in Australia, and the closer to Australia you get, the more fun the curse words and the more fun to that answer is.
I've heard
And then
that.
Americans
Yeah.
just go, damn, and I'm like, oh, stop being so PG. Let loose, swear for once.
I mean, I do. I mean, I know it's a bad connotation over there, but I do love how you guys like say "all wanker." But you know,
yeah, it's good. It's a good word. It's a good word. We use that quite often.
Yeah.
I use that all the time. Question 8.
Watching, yeah.
Okay. Question 8. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Honestly, it's going to be an interesting one. It's something I've always wanted to do, just even if it was just a couple for a part-time job or something, was like driving a big vehicle, like a bus or a truck or something like that. But the one dream I've always had, and that's one dream I never followed. I should have got into it, but flying. It's on my bucket list to get my pilot's license. I've flown once. I would love to be. I think if I didn't do what I already love, and I had an opportunity to just go back and redo it, I'd be a pilot. I'd still be involved in the community as much as I can, even though pilots are way more, but I'd be a pilot.
And the opposite question, what profession would you not like to do?
President.
No. You'll be president, right?
What profession would I not want to do? Yeah, I mean, there's so many things I feel like I've done for careers. I've been an engineer. I've worked in a system analyst. I've worked in an IT development company, and I've worked for school communications specialist. So it's like I've had a pretty diverse taste of jobs. I've worked at Burger King, so I played custodian, I played cook, I played fryer, and I didn't mind that at all. Honestly, I'm not sure what job I wouldn't want. Maybe the DCF. Those folks have it hard. People that go out and help with families, they have to help families either come back together or figure out what to do with kids. I mean, I love the fact that there's people passionate about that, but I don't think I could do it. I have a heart for so many people, but I think I would take it so much to heart that I would want to help. Like, I don't want to adopt every kid that didn't have an opportunity, and it would be hard. We have a small home.
I think I can infer there, but we don't have that acronym over here. We probably have a different job title. DCF?
Department of Children and Families. It's different in every state too. Every state calls it something else.
Yeah, so social work over here for us in the UK.
Yeah,
and I think might be the best one.
Those are the people that work under those departments that are called social workers.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Last question of this questionnaire. If you could say only one statement to any one person, what would that statement be, and who would that person be?
I'd almost say anybody would hear this, and it's some statement I've always loved, but if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And I'm going to honestly say I love everything I do.
Erik Johnson, thank you for your time.